Hey, sports fans, it's your favorite program of the week, Socialing the Distance. We have a real treat this week. Carey Pinkowski, Executive Race Director of the Bank of America Chicago Marathon. And after 728 days, you're back, man. Congratulations.
728 days. Yes, we were able to bring this great tradition back to life in a live event, and it was a great success and celebration, and it was just very emotional for all of us. And we move forward back to live events across the spectrum. We felt we were a big part of that.
Well, you had two pretty impressive races too. Ruth Chepnik, I mean, she was running like a bat out of hell for a while, man. And I was watching that temperature go, and I'm going, what's going to happen? And, for a while, really thought Sarah Hall could pull off another London, And then you got Emma Bates coming up and running the race of her life too. What impressed you about that women's race?
Well, I think what was apparent with Ruth was the influence of Bridget Koski from 2019. Even myself, I kind of got lulled into thinking, well, maybe we've seen all the world records, we've seen everything in Chicago. I mean, Berlin really focuses on that. I mean, that's first and foremost. You saw that this year. They try to go super, super fast. And Bridget, Bridget, just that vibe, I think. So I think Ruth, once she got out there, she said, wow, this is a fast course. Let me take advantage of it. You get caught up in that atmosphere. So I don't know, did she get a little ahead of herself? Maybe. But if you look at all the great performances, with the rare exception of maybe Paula, they had one event, one learning curve. I mean, Bridget ran behind Taranish Dababa one year, and she kind of took it all in. So I think Ruth is familiar with Chicago. I think if we get her back, we'll do our best. I think you'll see something she's capable of. Because if you think about it, quick turnaround from the Olympics, a few little injury things. I think she'd like to come back when she's in her world half marathon form or what we saw in the World Championships. So
sure. Sarah Hall and Emma Bates just ran tremendously. I mean, you had I think was it 4 American women in the top 5 in the top 10. What is it about your commitment? And I know you have a personal commitment to that, to building American performances in Chicago. Did you obviously handpicked the field? Did anybody really surprise you in the women's field?
No, I think it goes back to the culture of our event. I mean, we've always had our American Development Program. Really have to give the nod to Tracy Wilson, who manages that and keeps that piece going. I mean, so many athletes come out of that group and perform well. But going back to its inception is we have these great international fields. I think it's a great opportunity, not only when we line them up and they go through the course, but just to be in that atmosphere with these top athletes. It's a learning process, and from the athletic side of it, the competition side of it, but just how they prepare, how they carry themselves in the hotel. So they're all in the hotel, they're around each other. And, and if you're coming from Michigan or Wisconsin or somewhere in the mid-Kansas, some of the places, or maybe even in Canada, which is part of the developing program also, is it to be in a world-class Abbott World Marathon major event in your backyard or within striking distance of your house or home or where you train. I think it's important and a big part of what we do.
Yeah, no, you've had the global fields have been huge since Chicago came into being in the 1970s. I mean, I remember being at Runner's World in the early 1980s, and Bob Bright and Fred LeBeau. It was great opera, man. It was great for the sport. Did you feel that type of competition this year with when Boston, you found out Boston was going to be the next day? Was that a challenge for you? I mean, you're a pretty mellow guy, but
Yeah.
I'm just looking here and I'm going, this is your baby, man. This is your weekend, and it was a fascinating conundrum for me.
Yeah, Boston and London being in the spring have always been a wonderful complement to what we do, and it's an opportunity on the elite athletes. Or if an American has a great performance, you get to see them firsthand, and then the opportunity to work with them and try to get them to the start line in Chicago. And sharing best practices and how things went. Maybe there's a new wrinkle on technology or some things that we implement that we'll see individually or collectively. So sharing that data and those updates. But in this condensed window, we kind of started more competing against each other. So, and I think what you see is when they are that close, you see the uniquenesses of the events and what we do and what they do and how that differentiates each way. I think with us, why we saw such great success. Sarah Hall knew where she was going to go in the springtime. She knew she was coming to Chicago. Galen Rupp, going way back to the Olympic trials in Atlanta, and he was going to go to the Olympics. The quick turnaround. So that was in his plans. Emma Bates, we knew she was coming to Chicago early. All of those athletes that we had great, they knew what they had to do and where they were going to go. And I think that's important. And for us and our culture it's an event. The LaSalle Bank is Chicago Marathon's an event. It is there's a lot of things swirling around it. There's a lot of the grandeur of it and the sponsor activations and all the things that go through it, all the pillars. But I think what we've been able to do, and that comes from our team across the board, is these athletes are coming to Chicago to compete in the marathon. It's an athletic competition. That is first. That's number one on the list. And how do we make that the most accommodating and complementary experience on the front end of it? So we don't run them around. We don't have them doing a lot of stuff. Obviously they have to do certain things, the press conference, but it's all in the same location, getting to the start, getting to the training, getting to treatment, all that stuff. We don't have a lot of distractions in there. Especially within the 40 hours before the event, we let them get into their cadence and routine, and they're coming to compete. And what happens after that, obviously is not quite as important. Doesn't affect the performance. So I think what I'm the most proud of, and that's the sponsors and everyone the media, everyone that's involved with our media partners. Hey, Galen Rupp is coming to run. Ruth Chepnik is coming to run. So there's no, can we talk to her at 10 o'clock on Sunday night, or can we talk? We pretty much put that to bed Friday by noon, and then let them have their space.
The men's race I thought was fascinating. Obviously, you wanted Galen to do well, but you gave him honest competition. And Seifa Tura, I got a kick out of him. The thing I got a kick out of is him checking behind himself so many times. I think he didn't know where Galen was, and that was a very competitive race. How did you orchestrate that men's race?
Well, they're just great athletes. They knew where they were coming, and they prepared for it. But I think a lot of events, especially Berlin and London this spring, they, like us, we haven't done this in a while, and like the athletes, they haven't done this in a while. So it's a democratic process. I've never felt that the race director or the elite athlete coordinator or the media relations director should make the decision on how fast the athletes are going to go. I think it's a democratic process, and to go cracking off at world record pace, to set that. Now, Ruth did do that. That was her prerogative. But I think a lot of events just get caught up in that wreck fields because they go so fast. It's just crazy. You want to get you want to get the chemistry set and get people into where they're comforted. And if they want to attack after that, that's their prerogative. So, but good competition makes for great performances. I've always felt that, and makes for great theater. I think you can have both. I think you can have great competition. I think you can have records. And so it's not single-minded, let's go after the world record or let's do this. I think you got to set it up and let the chemistry kind of take hold and what happens. Now, we had a crazy day, a little warmer, and then in this, but for the elites, it got a little bit warmer but the sun didn't come out. We were expecting it to be a little bit more challenging. So not less than ideal conditions, but not as extreme as we thought. So sometimes you get a little lucky.
The press conferences were quite good. I have to tell you, Galen continues, and I did an interview with him back in February, and we had a great time. But he continues to learn how to reveal a little bit more of himself, but also kind of protect his privacy too. And I think that's fascinating. But I thought you had one of the most compelling post-race conferences this year. And I like how much harder is it to juggle the stuff where you've got people there and people like me 3,000 miles away typing in questions?
Well, I think we all got used to it. I think what you miss is the chemistry of being in the room and being able to, and then when they're walking, maybe it's that comment when they're walking down the hallway or walking in the hallway that is the most, and that's journalism, or that catch them coming in through the lobby or whatever, which is fine. You want to have everybody there because I think it stimulates the thought process. You guys all are. A press room is a press room, and comments that come out and people say things. I think in a media center, everybody kind of influences their take or points things out to the other writers. They may be looking at it a little bit different perspective. So it was a little different, a little more. But this is, and I've said this from the beginning, from the cancellation of 2020. This is a special edition year. This is a transition year. We had to make sure that we were mitigating all of those aspects and being safe, and we spread things out and went to the Zoom calls in the media center. So we want to make sure that each points that we were careful and cautious and taking local guidance and all that. So it was a little different, but I'm confident that we will get back to this time next year. We'll be back to our normal. People yelling questions out from the seats and stuff.
Yeah, the one
maybe yelling questions out that you don't want to answer, but that's
no, it happens.
Hard-hitting questions. So
I just remember my favorite time is right before everybody gets on the bus to head to the start. And I remember a couple of years ago when Mo was there with his new coach and Paula's husband, and
Gary,
and I was chatting with Gary for a second. He was trying to grab some breakfast, and I noticed how nervous he was. He was tapping his fingers on the table, and I'd never seen him like that before. And I'm texting someone in London, and they go, "Larry, think about it. He can only do one thing. If Mo does well, he's a great coach. If Mo doesn't do well, he's a crappy." And I was just like, wow. And so, I mean, those are the things, like you said, you get those feel. That's what I missed this year, because I haven't missed a year since, 1985, and so it's just when I was at Runner's World, and so it's just a different story. Hey, the wheelchair races this year were pretty compelling too. And that whole idea with them competing the next day, can you tell us how you guys pulled that off? Because I'm fascinated with that.
Well, I mean, I think I want to, recognize our team, our elite services team, Tracy Wilson, working with Mary Kate Shea in Boston. They took a good look at that. How was the quickest way we can get them through the finish line? I mean, and as much as you plan, like Mayor Lightfoot was at the finish line. She called and specifically said she wanted to see the wheelchair finish, and so she came down, wanted to meet the wheelchair champions. But it was just for us easier on the front end because most of the kids are down in Champaign, so they're not under the same timetable. They can and when they return to Chicago, but getting them from Chicago to Boston it was a bit of a fire drill getting, and then we had some weather issues and stuff, so they all got them there. But I mean, it'll be a memorable year to talk about in the future. But they did a great job.
Carey, I never got to ask you about this, so I wanted to throw this one in. Last year must have been very painful to have to cancel the race. Did it come down to the last minute for you guys, or how did you approach that?
I mean, it was apparent. It was just how we analyzed the data. I mean, and as more and more things started to pause, I mean, it became more and more apparent that was the only choice that we had. And it was for everybody. I mean, my son was a senior in high school, and there was no baseball. I mean, everybody, you know, weddings were postponed, graduation ceremonies, people. I mean, it was just a very, very difficult time for everybody, not only here in Chicago, but across the country. So many things were taken away from so many people that you know, Americans were a social group. And those in-person events that everybody cherishes so much through the summer, especially here in the summer, you know, going through the winter in Chicago, we have tough winters, so that's a little bit easier to process. But once you get into the springtime, and I mean, it was to the city of Chicago and the health department very aggressive with the measures that they were taking. And when you look back, we're in a great place right now. Chicago is in a great place with infection rates. So you could, at the time, you would question some of the actions or directives. But you know, when you look in October of 2021 and see how low our infection rates are, and still pushing, the state's still pushing, our governor and our mayor are still pushing. So for me, it was it's more, you realize why you do this and how long you've done this, and our different contact points and vendors and people that you work with that you don't see. So it was heartbreaking, but we have a great team. I think one of the elements that we did with Chicago is keep the team and our CEM team together. And when we realized we were coming back, we were able to jump in and get going.
I remember about 25 years ago, Jeremy Solomon and I coming back from something late on Saturday night, early Sunday morning, and seeing you still out checking something out on the course. Sure. And we were cracking up about it. And I was telling him Fred LeBeau stories at the time. Do you sleep the night before the race?
I do. I actually, my wife pointed out I did sleep. You know, there's some pieces of it I still do. I still paint the blue line, which is, there's a bit of fun to it, but it's also, you know, it has to be right, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So it has to be on the right street.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Some pieces of that, I still play an active role with, with interaction with our volunteer team and stuff like that. I mean, I think some of that's just nervous energy that you're part of it. And I mean, what I've seen over the years, the city has gone through an amazing transformation. And it's amazing what I saw, which was amazing to me from 2019 to 2000. How many more buildings have come online? How many, unfortunately, businesses that are not there, and new businesses. So that was a whole new network of contacts and people that we needed to reach out to with traffic closure information and reroute information. So it was kind of in many ways starting all over. Now there was our go-to community partners that really stepped up, but I was just pleased at the way the crowds came out. Some people said it was some of the biggest crowds they've ever seen at different locations. So the city really embraces it. That goes back to the point I was making just earlier, is the city has grown in an amazing way with the marathon. You know, I mean, you came to Chicago 25 years ago. So as the city grew and developed and became this magnificent, and so was the marathon. So people have kind of, and you see that with patrolmen that worked on the marathon that are now captains or commanders or deputy superintendents. So there's this legacy in history which is really tough to replicate, and to get good at some of this stuff. It just takes a lot of time. And I've been fortunate enough to be around for a pretty long time and connecting with making those connections. So,
well, Carey, you survived about 25 minutes with me and I know I could keep you talking, but
sure, I have plenty of time.
All right, I wanted to ask you one final question. How are you going to put this year in perspective? In your Carey deep thoughts, as I put the questions together to Dana, where are you going to place the 45th year of the Bank of America Chicago Marathon?
Well, the 43rd. This was the 43rd running of the marathon, 43rd iteration of the event. I think it's the most significant event that we've ever had. I think if you go back through the history of all the events, and a lot of times you want to lean into the world records or the benchmarks when we got 5,000 people or 5,000 finishers or 10 or 20 or 30. 2019 we had 45,916 finishers, which is all-time high. And you might want to say that was a significant year, but I think the fact that we didn't have the event and we came back, it's just like, I almost kind of put it to an athletic analogy. I mean, it was like we had a major setback or an injury, overcame it, and came back and performed well. So a lot of the things that we did up front, we knew we were going to take some of the energy of it. I mean, we had no grandstands at the finish line, which kind of, we were sitting there and we missed that. We have a really, really massive massage program where we have over 250 massages that, eliminated that. A lot of the pasta dinners that we have, we reconfigured the expo and we shrunk the participant field by 25%, used the same footprint that we used when we started 47,000 people in 2019. So a lot of those things, we had made that decision and we stayed on that path. I mean, I think the most significant thing is we went out to our participants and said, early on, you're going to have to be vaccinated. You're going to have a proof of vaccination. And if you can't prove vaccination, then you're going to have a negative COVID test, which is 70. There was no pushback on that. It was like people got in line, and we were very thorough in identifying that and with the vaccination cards, and everybody went through that screening process. So, I mean, everybody was in on this. Everybody played a role. Our team has been, our registration team and participant services team has been very generous with deferral and cancellation and making sure if people have a challenge that they can come here, but they have to quarantine, letting them defer to next year. So it's going to take a couple of years for us to cycle out of these adjustments that we've made. But I think it's the fact that we had an event, we had some great racing up front, that our participants cooperated, the city agency, everybody. It's an amazing ecosystem. Everybody showed up and did their job, and we got through it. So we're in a great place moving forward, and just looking forward to that.
How many starters did you have this year?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think we're still ticking up on that. I want to see, the last thing I saw was 26,600 finishers.
Okay.
But that's still an estimate.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just kind of put that in there, and then
with an asterisk. Because
Okay.
even in this most significant year, some people don't run all the way. I mean, there's still a little bit of auditing that goes on that with our stuff.
What was the biggest surprise you had on the elite side?
Uh, wow. That's a good question. Well, I think what I liked first was Marcel Hug and Daniel Romacek going at it, and Marcel is the silver bullet, and he's got the custom chair and all of the science that goes into it, and he's the silver bullet. And you know what? He ran across a kid from Champaign, Illinois. All right, a fighting Illini, a kid from our home state, and Daniel got him, which is great, and that was awesome. I mean, there was a lot of vibe. And when Daniel was leaving the park, they were like, "All right, kid, you got to go win Boston tomorrow," you know. So it was like, Chicagoans like their guys, you know, and they like their and when they come through in their neighborhood, that was good. So that kind of created the vibe. I mean, Galen Rupp running as well as he did. I don't think anybody realizes, because he's not as you mentioned, he's a pretty a quiet guy. He doesn't talk about himself much. But I mean, the surgery that he had after 2000. His last time in 2019 is pretty radical surgery, and then changing coaches and all that turmoil, all that stuff that would edit for a guy that could walk away and say, hey, you know what, I've had a pretty good career, but for him to, especially at this point in his career, to go through that surgery, change coaches, everything that's swirled around that, and come through on the other side. Win the Olympic trials, and then make the Olympic team, and then have the year, the Olympic marathon postponed for a year, and still make his way to the start line in Chicago, which is what we talked about in 2019, agreed to. I mean, that's awesome. It was just awesome. And he's been a great guy for us in Chicago here. Everything we've asked him to do, he's done. We've taken to the Cubs game. He throws out the first pitch. All of the stuff. I couldn't get him to throw out a first pitch at a Sox game because he's a Cubs fan. But that's the only problem I have. It's the only way we don't quite see eye to eye. But he's a magnificent athlete, and very popular in Chicago, and very popular with our staff. You're just happy when someone and to have him perform like that too, to make the race. I mean, it was obviously he was lurking there. It was.
He was in it till the end, and I'm totally impressed with that, because, you've run a 2:22 marathon, I believe, in the.
Oh, it's a little bit faster than that. Yeah, a little bit faster.
Okay.
We don't want to talk about that.
Okay, right. I found some good pictures of you and Rudy Chapa. So from the old days.
A long time ago.
Yeah, but Carey, thank you so much, and. I really enjoyed the interview. Always enjoy your race. Congratulations for bringing the Bank of America Chicago Marathon back. I hope to see you there next year, my friend. And
I hope so too, Larry. Thank you for talking about us and covering us and giving us some. I'm so fortunate to be surrounded by so many hardworking people that make this happen, and our sponsors that stuck with us through the cancellation and came back and activated and did the things around it. We, our media partner, NBC, did a great job. After being off for 2 years, came back, and I thought probably did one of the best broadcasts we've had. So
that's what I thought too. I thought that the team with Swangard and Kara and Chris Waddell were fantastic, and our numbers seem to show that too. So congrats.
And I'll get a chance. There's a rebroadcast. I've watched bits of the broadcast. Now there's a rebroadcast here in the Chicago market on Chicago Sports and Chicago Sports Net, and I am going to watch it start to finish. I'll have to take a nap in the afternoon, but I'll watch the whole thing.
Well, good luck with that one, Carey. And thanks again. This is Larry Eder with RunBlogRun, program Social in the Distance. We had Carey Pinkowski today, Executive Race Director of the Bank of America Chicago Marathon. Thanks, Carey.
See you, Larry. Thank you.
Well, hello, sports fans. Larry Eder, RunBlogRun. This is your favorite program, Social in the Distance. This is the epilogue where I spout, off something. And on the topic of today, our topic of today was Carey Pinkowski. He's the Executive Race Director at the Bank of America Chicago Marathon. After 728 days of waiting, the Chicago Marathon in his 43rd year came about, and a little over 26,000 people, about 26,600, give a few. That's the best number as of today. Finished. Great races up front. Ruth Chepnik was ahead of the world record for a long period of time. And Seifa Tura won that race in the last couple miles, looking back to make sure Galen Rupp wasn't going to get him. On both sides, American athletes played huge roles. Emma Bates in second, Sarah Hall in third on the women's side, Galen Rupp in second on the men's side. And so we got a little time with Carey. And Carey's been the executive race director, I believe, since about 1990. He was involved with the race before then. Everything from the time of Bob Bright to the Beatrice Foods folks to, and I seem to recall meeting him about 1991, 1992. Carey was a runner, a very fine runner in high school, ran with a couple guys, Tim Keogh and Rudy Chapa up in Gary, Indiana. And I remember an article back about 1976. They were three of the top high school runners in the country. In fact, think about going sub 9 minutes for 2 miles in high school and not winning your state meet. That's what happened in lovely Indiana. But then he went to Villanova and he ran a couple fast marathons. And then he got into helping with the Chicago Marathon. And he's been there for, close to 1,000 years. Good sense of humor. Loves his city of Chicago. Mayor Lightfoot was at the finish line for the wheelchair finishers this year. And I remember in past years when former Mayor Aram Emanuel was at the presser each year, and he loved it. I mean, he knew how important the race was for the city and how people from all over the world came to run Chicago, and the amazing fields that Tracy Wilson and Carey put together, and their attention to detail on a fast course showcasing the city with, I think it's 29 neighborhoods. And it's a great place for beginning marathoners. It's a great place for elite marathoners. And as Carey said today, it's about the athletic competition. That's what the first thing is. But the pandemic has shaken it all up. Last year, the race was canceled. And bringing it back this year, they had to put some things in place. And it changed some of the culture around the race. I mean, it changed some of the things that were done around the race. I'm not sure how much it changed the culture. Carey believes the race will be back next year in its normal world. This is a very strange year. You've got the London Marathon a week before. You have the Boston Marathon the day after. You have a virtual Tokyo Marathon next weekend, and then you have New York at the normal time. But there will be 6 Abbott World Marathon Major races in 7 weeks, and it's a very interesting time. I think people are being inspired. Have to do a shout out for the NBC programming in Chicago. They did a great job with Paul Swangard, Kara Goucher, and Chris Waddell, and I think that. I enjoyed watching the broadcast, and in the past, it's been kind of, some things were good and some things were, dear God. Did miss Tony Revis though, and Ed Eyestone, but I think that they did a nice job, and that's we've got to have good broadcasts for events. That's how we bring in new viewers. So, congratulations to Carey Pinkowski, Executive Race Director at the Bank of America Chicago Marathon, Mike Nishi and the whole team in Chicago. Sorry I missed it this year. I haven't missed a year, I think, since the late 1980s. And it's just one of those races that I dearly love. And even after my heart surgery in 18. The first event that I was able to go to a marathon was Chicago. I took a bus down and hung out there, and then came back that night. So I will be back there next year, hopefully in 2022. So Larry Eder, Run Blog Run, Socialing the Distance. Thanks again to Carey Pinkowski. Thanks to Carey's PR team for helping put this together. And thanks to Mike Deering, our production manager, for managing me, which is a thankless job. All right. Peace out. Stay safe.